let's get into some product orientation. We've talked a lot about cannabis, what it can do, what it can't do, some safety issues around cannabis, medical conditions. So let's actually look at the products themselves. First of all, let's do a comparison between our medical versus recreational. Often they're exactly the same product, they just have different labels or different branding on them. But there's some reasons why you might want to be in the medical condition. We've covered some of those, but let's kind of just go over them anyway. So medical side, or the medical track, you'll have compassion pricing for low income users. Most companies, not all, but most companies are doing that. Where at the retail level, it's always the set price. There's no discounts allowed in the recreational area. Purchases are considered a medical expense either for insurance or income tax purposes if you buy them through the medical track with an authorization to use cannabis, and it's not considered a medical expense if you buy it recreationally. Same product, just depends on what stream you buy it from. Mostly stable product availability, and as far as keeping their inventory up, that's the medical route, or the people who are selling for medical reasons are really working hard to make sure that people who need the product for medical purposes are able to get the same product day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Now, there's still a lot of fluctuations out there, but we're getting a lot more stability than we had even just 2 years ago. Product availability in the stores, at the retail stores, whether they're government run or whether they're private run, depending on what province that you're in, the reliability is kind of at the mercy of whoever the government wholesalers are, right? Which is most provinces and territories. The wholesalers are the government in the same way that liquor is distributed. It goes through a government department, and then that becomes a wholesaler, and they sell it out. Because there's a lot of shortages, and there's we just don't have a lot of stability in the retail market. There's a lot more stores that are kind of coming on board. There's shortages of products in the recreational area. So a retail store might put their product order in, their weekly order or monthly order, however they do it, but they might only get 50% of the products that they tried to order. Because if a supplier only supplies so many products through to a province, and then all the stores in that province want it, and there's only maybe one for every store that's in the province, or maybe there's only one for every 2 stores in the province. So it's a bit of a gamble. So again, if you are relying on your product for medical purposes and you're not growing and manufacturing yourself, then it is probably to your advantage to get into the medical system just for that supply, consistent supply. Now, just because you're in the medical system doesn't mean that you were prohibited from walking into a retail store and making a purchase, right? So again, we got some weird gray areas going on here, but that'll sort itself out as time goes on. Probably we find in the medical system more and higher potency CBD products, because CBD is kind of considered the medical cannabinoid, and THC is considered the recreational cannabinoid. But of course, we know that THC is just as medical as CBD is, and but again, until we kind of get the market matures a little bit, we're going to find higher and more stable supplies of CBD in the medical system than we find in the retail system. In the medical system, it's all online ordering, gets delivered by courier. A lot of companies will absorb the courier costs, at least for one order a month or orders over a certain amount. But that is an added cost into the medical area, which is a bit controversial for some people. At the store level or at the retail level, you have to go into that store to pick it up. Now, some provinces may be starting to ease the rules around that stores are able to deliver. But for the most part, you have to actually show up to the store to pick up your products. Medical delivered to your door via courier, although a lot of couriers are just going to deliver it to the depot, and then you still have to go pick it up from the depot, and then retail in-store pickup. Advisors are available in the medical system to help you choose your product, help you use your product, help you kind of work your way through any sort of side effects that you're getting, help you with titration. On the retail side, staff working in cannabis retail stores are prohibited by law to give any kind of medical advice. Now, medical advice can be considered helping you find a product to help you sleep. So if you walk into a retail store and say, hey, what are people using to help them with sleep? That retail store staff says that's medical advice. I can't advise you on that. So again, a little bit tricky with the retail stores. Again, I suspect that will ease up a little bit in the next 5 or 10 years, but right now in 2020, that's kind of where we're at. There are both federal and provincial excise taxes on cannabis. In some cases, it's as much as 20%. Some medical sellers that are in the medical system are absorbing at least the federal excise tax, so that saves a little bit of money for medical patients. When you're working in retail, you're going to have both provincial and federal tax added onto there, and that's well above the GST. Monthly purchasing limits are based on your authorization in the medical system. So your daily authorization times 30, that's how much you can purchase every month. Daily purchasing limit in the retail is 30 grams. There's nothing stopping you from buying 30 grams on Monday, 30 grams on Tuesday, 30 grams on Thursday. So again, we got a few glitches that need to be worked out in our purchasing limits. And then medical versus retail, most medical license producers that are selling to the medical community do have programs for veterans. A lot of them will actually directly bill Veterans Affairs so that the veterans don't have to pay out of pocket on that. Others will help the veterans get reimbursed through Veterans Affairs if it has been authorized medically. On the recreational side, there's no veterans programs. You can't charge Veterans Affairs or have Veterans Affairs supplement your costs of buying cannabis through the retail level. So those are just kind of some of the comparisons and contrasts of the medical system versus the retail. There's some people that are saying the medical system may go away in the next 10 years, and others think that it's going to become even more clearly divided. But again, we're in a kind of unprecedented area here, Canada being the first to kind of go about having this dual system of medical and recreational sort of product streams that are kind of running parallel to each other. So interesting times ahead. Okay, how do you choose a product? There's so many on the market, and there's so many more coming up, both medical and retail, and what's being approved by Health Canada as well. So on October 17th, 2018, the only thing that was approved was dry flower and extracted cannabinoids in an oil base. Those were the only two products that we had recreationally or in retail stores. That's now, as of October 17th, 2019, that has opened up. So we now have a lot more products that can be available at both the medical and the retail level. And there's some thought that more is coming here in 2020 when we get to October 2020, and probably every year, possibly things may change as the industry matures and both lawmakers and law enforcement get more comfortable with the product and having the general public using the product. So again, lots to go here. Remember that when we're choosing a product, cannabis is a category, it's not a product. There's no single cannabis product out there. Cannabis refers to a suite of products or a category of products. There's lots to choose from. It can be used as a medicine, a supplement, or a recreational product. All three, the same product can be used for all three. It can help manage medical conditions. It can help to prevent or at least help somebody the way a supplement does. Some people take a vitamin D every day or vitamin C or B vitamins just to help kind of manage their immunity. So cannabis can be used like that. And it's also used as a recreational product in the same way we might use beer and wine and alcohol just as a social lubricant, or just kind of to help people relax. So again, pretty unique product. Choosing a product is really overwhelming. It's probably the most common question I get is like, what should I use? What product should I buy? Like, people have no idea if they're new to it. There's just so much. We've come so far from, you know, meeting your dealer or your supplier at the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, and he gives you the little plastic baggie. Where you don't really have a choice over, you just whatever your supplier grew that time and what they have on hand. So we've come a long way from that, which is good news, but it also can be really overwhelming until you sort of help kind of get familiar with the products and how they're all used. Some cannabis products have the potential to cause impairment. Some don't, and right now at the federal level and the provincial level in Canada, the laws do not differentiate between a CBD product that is non-impairing and a THC product that is impairing. There's no differentiation right now. Everyone is expecting that at some point CBD products will be kind of released from those same regulations as products that contain THC. And at some point in the future, we'll probably start to see CBD products showing up in health food stores and grocery stores without any of the big regulations around them that we find right now. But right now in 2020, that's where they're at. CBD, THC, non-impairing, impairing, treated exactly the same way by Health Canada and by law enforcement. A lot of products are ready to use. Just, you know, your oil, you use your dropper, put it in, you got your sprays, you got your pills that you take. Other products actually require quite a bit of preparation in order to use them. So again, that just adds to the complexity of choosing your product. And then if you grow your own, you have that other added complexity of you still have to harvest your product, it has to be properly dried, properly cured, and then you need to prepare it in some way for your use. Products come in different forms, different strains, different cannabinoid ratios, you know, different terpene ratios, different terpenes with different cannabinoids. We've got hybrids, sativas, indicas. You know, it's overwhelming, really, and it can actually take quite a bit of experimenting with finding the right product. So some people land on their perfect product with their first or second purchase. Other people, it can take weeks and even months to find that perfect product that really works for their needs. So keep that in mind when you are advising somebody on using a product, because for some people that experimenting can get to be quite expensive. And so we can find some ways around that, buying small quantities, making sure that, you know, you start at the lowest potency, because those are generally less expensive. If they don't need a high potency product, why spend the money on that, right? So again, there's lots of things that we need to take into consideration while we're doing this. Okay, let's create your ideal product profile. How do we do that? Well, first of all, you have to ask, what's the purpose? Why do you want to use a cannabis product? Are you treating pain? Do you need some help getting a good night's sleep? Are you hanging out with friends? Those kinds of things, right? Those are all legitimate reasons for using a cannabis product. So, you know, just you don't have to be ashamed of using cannabis to hang out with friends, as long as all your friends are comfortable with that. But it's still, you got to choose your product, right? How do you choose your product? First of all, know its purpose. What is the goal? Right? That's the question that you ask yourself, or you ask the person that you're advising. Do you want to relax? Do you want to stimulate? Do you want to be able to focus better? Do you want to spark creativity? Do you want to sleep? Do you want to stimulate appetite? Right? So what's the purpose? What's the goal? Do you need something that's fast acting or longer lasting, or maybe both? So for example, someone who has trouble both falling asleep and staying asleep, they're going to want something fast acting to help them fall asleep, but they also want something that's more longer lasting to help them stay asleep, right? And so you may be using 2 different products, an inhalation product as well as an edible product to help you sleep at night. Some people only need help falling asleep. Some people only need help staying asleep. And there's lots of people out there that need a little bit of support in both of those areas. What's your preferred intake method? I often get people who are ex-smokers. You know, I stopped smoking 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I don't want to inhale anything because they're either kind of disgusted by it because they did that for too many years, or they're afraid that they do like that so much that it might trigger that need for cigarettes again. So always respect that, right? If somebody says, I don't want to inhale my product, then work with them to find another method. Even if inhalation is the best method for them, we always want to respect people's wishes, and we don't want to trigger past addictions by asking them to take something that they're uncomfortable with doing. So preferred intake method, some people don't like eating it at all, or they don't like the taste of the oil. So then we might want to go to some of the soft gels. That can be helpful replacement for that. So understand what the preferred method intake is and what are the expectations of the product. Again, we have to be careful not to make big, grandiose expectations that this product is going to cure all your troubles. It's just another tool in the tool belt that we have to help manage everyday living and health conditions. Okay, let's look at product potency. It's expressed in several different ways. So flowers and pre-rolls, the pre-rolls are cannabis cigarettes that you buy already rolled. That's on the label, that would be expressed as percentage. So THC and CBD as a percentage. When we get into oils and soft gels, any kind of chocolates, gummies, those kind of edibles, those are, when we get into things like oils, that is expressed as milligrams per milliliter, but when we have specific units, so 1 pill, 1 chocolate, 1 gummy bear, that will be expressed as milligrams per unit. So again, that will be on the label itself, and it needs to say whatever the milligrams, and then it needs to say the per unit. So per serving, per capsule, per chocolate, whatever it is, that will be clearly shown on the label. When we get into things like concentrates, so things like rosin and keef, those are expressed as milligrams per gram, right? Because they're much more concentrated. So you're going to be seeing those concentrates up into the 30, 40, 50 milligrams per gram. And those are quite high. And then we'll look at things like in drinks, we have milligrams per serving again. Vape pens are milligrams per cartridge. So some of them will break that down. So every inhalation, they'll tell you how many milligrams you're getting. But often it's just per cartridge. So then you have to decide, well, how much am I getting? How many inhalations do I get from 1 cartridge? And then you can calculate out how much you're getting from per inhalation on that. And then topicals, again, it's going to depend on how much you're using, so that will be expressed as milligrams per container. And then if you're using, say, 1/10 of the container, you would take that milligrams, divide it by 10. That's how much you're putting on your skin. So again, it gets a little bit trickier when we're getting into things like vape pens and topicals and those kinds of things, a little bit harder to measure how much you're getting. When we're looking at the potency, what is considered high potency, what is considered low potency? So if we look at the numbers that we have over on this product and how the potency is expressed, and we put a number in front of that, so the potency, so if we have 2 or less, if we're talking about a flower or pre-roll, we're talking about 2% or 2% for the pre-roll. If we're talking about oil, we put that 2 in front of the milligrams, so 2 milligrams per milliliter. So 2 or less of either milligrams or percent or per serving is considered negligible. For the vast majority of people, if we're talking about 2% or 2 milligrams per milliliter of THC, vast majority of people will not feel any impairment from that or just very slight impairment. you are going to come across people who that little, who become impaired from that little amount, or they might not feel impaired, but they just feel dizzy and nauseous. So again, there are some people out there that are quite sensitive to THC. So even though we're considering 2 or less a negligible amount, then we know that there are a few people out there that are going to become impaired from that. 2 to 8 is considered low potency, 8 to 18, moderate potency. Once we get 18 to 30, that's considered high. So for more experienced users or conditions that require the higher amounts. And when we get into 30 or more, we're talking about concentrates. So this would apply to both THC and CBD. So in some cases, we're going to want that concentrated CBD at 30 or more, either 30%, which is hard to find on the market right now, but 30 milligrams per milliliter, we might want more than that. But in a THC product, we might want to be in the low to moderate range. Again, it just depends on the person, what their tolerance level is, their genetics, which we might not know about. But that kind of gives you an idea when you're choosing a product if it's low, moderate, high, or a concentrate. Okay, so here's a template for creating your product profile. And for when you first start advising people or you're buying a product for yourself, it's good to just go through this template and just kind of make some intentions around your purchase. Why are you using it? What is the intake method that you want? And here's just a few different areas you can just kind of check off. If you want inhalation, if you want oil with a dropper or oil with a pill, if you prefer an edible like a chocolate or something, if you prefer a spray or a topical. So again, just kind of use this as a bit of a template to check off what's the preferred intake method. What's the strain category? So we've talked about indica, sativa, hybrid, and CBD. Now CBD, of course, isn't a strain, but because products that are higher in CBD tend to have just sort of morphed into their own category, and people call it a strain. It's not technically a strain, but it is categorized as that. So remember indica, indicouch, that's more relaxing, sedating. Sativa is more sunny sativa, right? A little more stimulating, a little, wakes you up a little bit. Hybrid is going to be a combination of both. Now, some licensed producers will actually say it's a hybrid, but they'll say, 80% sativa and 20% indica. Again, those are general based on the genetics of the plants, so we can't completely rely on that, but that can be helpful for some things. Our next part on a template is what cannabinoid ratio are you looking for? And that's going to be, what's the purpose of your using the product? So do you want mostly THC? Do you want mostly CBD? Or do you want more of a balanced product, balance between the two of them? Or some ratio of THC to CBD? Because we're starting to come up with lots of different ratios out there as well. And then your potency, do you need negligible THC, low, moderate, high, or concentrated THC? And then same for CBD. Negligible, low, moderate, high, or concentrate. And complementary terpenes. So if you remember back to our terpenes, it's good to have some of the more common terpenes memorized in your head about what they do. So caryophyllene, of course, is very anti-inflammatory. Humulin is really good to help with sleep, and it suppresses appetite. Limonene is more uplifting, more stimulating. Linalool is more relaxing. Myrcene or myrcene, depending on how you want to say that, that's very both muscle relaxing and sedating. And the pinene is both relaxing, kind of chills you out, but it can also this kind of weird thing where you get your body kind of gets chilled out, but your mind kind of becomes a little more stimulated and activated. So pinene, a lot of people like to have high pinene for sparking creativity if they're doing a creative project. So this is just a product profile that you can use, especially when you're just getting started choosing products. Of course, you always want to attach what's the purpose, what's the goal of using this product, and then from there you can start to decide on these different categories on your template. Okay, how do we recognize what's a legal online cannabis store? Because there is still non-legal cannabis stores, online cannabis stores out there. There's still a few non-legal retail stores, bricks and mortar stores out there, but they're few and far between at this point, but you're still going to come across them. But how do you recognize an online legal, illegal, or legal online cannabis store? A legal cannabis store is going to have an age gate. So that means you can't actually access the website until you say that you are of age in the province that you're in. So if it's in Alberta, you have to be at least 18. If you're in Quebec, you have to be at least 21. Everywhere else is 19. So there'll be an age gate. Now, there's nothing stopping an illegal online cannabis store from putting an age gate on their website. So that's not the only clue, but it is a clue. Your product packaging, if they do have pictures of the product, in its package, it has to adhere to the Health Canada label or the Cannabis Act labeling rules. So we have that red THC, red and black and white THC symbol is going to be on there, quite prominently on there. And then we also have this yellow warning sign. Even if it's a CBD product, it's going to have a warning sign about THC, which confuses a lot of people, but that's where we are. There'll also be that provincial excise stamp that we have looked at earlier, and there can't be any images on the label of the product packaging. You can have your company logo in a small, kind of a small version. It can't take up the whole label. There's a certain size for your label. And then you can have information about, maybe the name of the product right there. And then it does need to say what form it is. So this is whole flower cannabis. If it's an extracted oil, that information has to be there as well. THC and CBD potencies have to be, by law, shown on the label, and a lot of times your recreational products, those labels are going to be splashed with all kinds of pictures and logos, and may or may not have any kind of THC or CBD numbers on there, and that's because they haven't been tested. Now, some non-legal sellers are starting to have their product tested, but not all of them are. And some, quite frankly, just might make up numbers. So again, be careful with that. No third-party advertisements on the website itself. So you might see some Google ads or something on the non-legal websites. Again, the legal websites have to be no third-party advertising on there. And then all the products that are being sold have to be from the Canadian licensed producers, and we talked earlier about how to know if it's a legal producer within Canada, and that's just a simple Google search to go licensed producers Canada database, and you'll come up with that. And we've definitely given the link in other ones here. So let's take a look at some of these product websites, and we'll see what we can see if we can spot some of the differences. So the first one we're starting with here is this company called wholesalebud.ca. And wholesale is a beautiful thing. So this is a cannabis sale website. Another thing here is they're selling shrooms. So those are medicinal mushrooms, or magic mushrooms as they're also known. And those right now, those are not a legal product to be sold. So sorry, I don't mean to pick on wholesalebud.ca, but it's a really great example. It's a beautiful website, right? It looks fairly professional. So if we kind of scroll down in this one, and we see some of their products. So these products here, pictures of flowers, you'll find those pictures of flowers in other companies' websites as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's not illegal at all. And then you see pictures of these vape cartridges as well for the vape pens. That, again, not illegal at all. So that's fine there. But then we get down into, as we scroll down, you'll see some of these products here, the packaging on that. Well, the packaging on all of these, actually, you can see it just says house brand on there. So there's no of that big yellow Health Canada THC warning on there. And then you see there's some really kind of beautiful pictures on all of these products here. Again, that would be an indication of a non-legal product. Shipping. Unless it's a medical cannabis that you have been hooked up with through your medical doctor or your medical cannabis clinic, you can't, the retail stores cannot ship their products. I think those are, other than that, the other thing that you can do is you can look up this name in Health Canada in that database. So again, you just Google Licensed Producers Canada database, and then you can look up wholesalebud.ca, and I guarantee you will not find that name in Health Canada database at this point in time. So let's now look at a medical licensed producer. So Tilray is very medically focused. This is their medical brand. They are a licensed producer. Let's go check that out. Let's go to our licensed producer database, and we're going to type in Tilray. And you'll see we have one of two entries. So we have Tilray is the license holder, but they have a second site, Tilray Canada. So for every site where you're growing your cannabis at, you have to have a specific license for that site. It can be under the same name, but you have your first site, and then your second site, your third site. They all require specific individual licenses. So you can see for this one, it is based out of British Columbia. Both of their sites are based out of British Columbia. Their license in their first site is to sale for medical, for processing and cultivation. And so that is kind of clearly outlined there what their license is. And in their second site, they have a sale for medical cannabis. So not cultivation, so they can't grow at their second site. It's probably more of just a warehouse where they're selling their products from. And then classes of cannabis, the license holder is authorized to sell. So again, plant seeds, dried, fresh, oil, extracts, edibles, and topicals. Their second site, no licensing there. And so you can see Tilray is very clearly a legal licensed producer in Health Canada's database. So we know we can trust this one. Also, this one is only accessible by people who have a medical authorization to use cannabis. And we'll know that because if we try and go into their shop now, and let's say we want to buy that product, we have to sign in. Now, a lot of companies will have a sign-in on their online store, so that in itself doesn't say that, yes, this is legal, but you will have to show your email and password, and once you're in there, you have to have a customer ID number, and you can only get that is if your medical provider has sent your medical authorization to Tilray, and Tilray has set you up with an account. So it's not something that you can kind of go in and you can set that up yourself. There is some interaction that happens between the licensed producer, the medical licensed producer, yourself, and your medical clinic or your doctor. So you would sign into your account there. So let's see how the products are displayed on a licensed producer for medical cannabis. So you see the products that are for sale here. If we go open that menu up, there's only accessories and medical cannabis. Now, anyone can make a website that says that. So again, that's not a clue on that. But we go in here and you can see these products very clearly adhere to Health Canada rules. So if we pull up a better picture of that, we can see, the product, it's not a great picture product, but we can see just a little corner of that red THC symbol and the yellow label right there as well. You can see the packaging is very plain. It's got a child-proof lid on it, and then we clearly displays how much THC and how much CBD is in that product as well. And then it will give some information about it. So those are some clues about medical cannabis. So how you would choose a medical cannabis, most of these guys will have a way of filtering the products, especially as we get more products being available through the medical producers. So we can sort it by oil, we can sort it by whole flower, by vape pen, and by pre-rolls. Again, if we look at that, let's just look at that whole flower. It's maybe a little bit more interesting. Okay, let's just pull this guy up here, Floral Kush. So what can we learn about Floral Kush? Well, first of all, let's look at the label. There's that peak of the red THC symbol. We clearly see the yellow warning label. So we know that that's adhering to Health Canada's rules. Now you notice there's no excise stamp on this package because Tilray sells across Canada. So they would have to have a different picture for each province. And they just have one central website. So when that product arrives at your door, it will have that excise stamp on it from the province where you live. So if you're in Alberta, it'll have the Alberta one. If you're in Newfoundland, it'll have the Newfoundland stamp on it. All right, let's see what we can see about this. This Floral Kush is 22.7% THC. So we just learned that anything over 18 and under 30% THC, that's considered high potency. And your CBD is under 2%, so that's considered negligible or really nothing in there. You'll notice it's going to say levels vary by lot. That's just referring to how much actual THC and CBD will be in there because we are dealing with a plant. So Health Canada does allow you a little bit of a range in there because each batch is going to be slightly different depending on how it's grown, when it's grown, how it was utilized. But they're all going to be within a range of about 5% or so. The other things that we can see from here, we don't see any terpenes in this product. Sometimes some licensed producers will put up the terpene profile of that, which can be helpful when you're ordering dried flower. It will tell you that it is a dried flower amount. And you'll notice here that it says 5750, but on this kind of more specific, more detailed page, what does that 5750 refer to? How much do you get for that? If we go back to the main product page, we've got a little bit more information on there about that. So again, maybe they could improve their website a little bit. You can see this is a 5-gram pre-pack. That's just mean it's been pre-packaged. So to find out your price per gram, you're going to have to divide 57.50 by 5 grams, and then you'll be able to compare it to other products as the price per gram goes. So that's kind of a really quick tour of a medical cannabis website. You can see their vape pens. That THC amount in the vape pen seems really high, 425 milligrams. But of course, with your vape pens, you're just taking it an inhalation at a time. So it's not like you'd be eating or intaking that whole product all at once. These products are meant to be taken in a little bit at a time. So that's why that's so high on that one. And of course, we would consider that maybe more of a concentrate as well. But again, we're not taking the whole thing in at once. So that's a medical website, and again, medical products, you can only buy medical cannabis in the medical stream through an online store, and you have to be set up with that online store through your doctor's clinic, who sends your medical authorization by secure fax to the licensed producer, and then it takes a few days to get you set up in there. These products will be delivered by courier and does require signature by someone over 18 once they arrive. Okay, so we've looked at a non-legal website, we've looked at a medical legal website, so let's look at a legal online store website. And so this is the age gate that I was talking about. Basically, they just say the reason they ask where are you from is because every province, or there's a variation. Alberta's 18, you have to be over 18, Quebec 21. Everywhere else, all the other provinces and territories are 19 years old. So you would just put where you're from, and then you would enter your birthday. Of course, you don't have to show any kind of ID in here, so you can put in that you were, born in 1999 and pretend to be young again, and it lets you in. It's a bit of a silly deterrent because anyone can lie about their age on those, but it is just another safeguard that that is a requirement by law that they have to have on there. So this is a Tokyo Smoke website, and if we look at, let's see if we get to a Calgary one, because I'm located in Calgary, we can find a Tokyo Smoke there. We have several in the city. We can click on that, and then we can see kind of pictures of it. So how do we know that this is a legal store? Well, we can go to the city where it is located. So cannabis products, the jurisdiction for those is the federal government. They have control over products. The provinces and the municipalities have control over the stores. And with the municipalities having the ultimate control of whether or not a store is allowed to open up in their city or town. So in this one, how do we know? We can go to the City of Calgary website. Now, every municipality is going to be different. City of Calgary actually has this little map of where all the cannabis stores are located in the city. And so we could click on the search item there, and we can go Tokyo Smoke. And we can do a search there, and it did come up. It only came up with one, but we know that there's several in the cities. So if it's made it onto this website, we can be fairly certain that it is a legal one. You could also phone the city's information line if you're unsure, and you can check it out that way as well. Okay, let's take a look at one of these products. So this Tweed Baker Street, this is a soft gel, if we go into that. Now, first of all, is Tweed a legal reseller or a cannabis producer in Canada? So we plug Tweed into our Health Canada database, and we find that they do have 5 licenses to sell products. And they have 3 locations, Ontario, New Brunswick, and British Columbia. So we can see that that is a legitimate product there, the Tweed Baker Street. Again, this is a soft gel. They might say, like, mind and body, if we want, how do we want to use it? We have what type it is. It's a 2.5 milligram product. We get 15 capsules in the jar. And then it gives a little bit of information about that product right there. So here's one of their products, some interesting, possibly pushing the limits of how they can display with the lemon on there. But that's probably referring to its name. Lemon Z is derived from a cross of classic cultivar lemon skunk and Zed Kittles. So lots of fun things there. Do we know the producer for that? Is Ogun Cannabis by Ogun Cannabis. So we would look that up and make sure that that's a licensed producer. And then we have these guys show the terpenes in here. So it's predominant in humulin, or predominant in caryophyllene, but we've also got some humulin, some limonene, and some linalool in there, and kind of tells you about the flavors, tells you about the growing method as well. So those are a few clues there. Now, with an online retail store, we cannot purchase from the store. We can add it to a cart and we can reserve it, but in Alberta right now, that store cannot deliver it for us. Some provinces, like I say, may have relaxed some of the rules around that, but things are changing all the time. So you usually can't buy from a retail store online, but you can reserve it and then go down and pick up and pay for your product in store. And there's one more I just wanted to show you, which is Spirit Leaf. There's a few Spirit Leaf stores in Calgary and plenty around Canada as well. And again, you can see how they display THC, CBD, high CBD product, this particular product. And then we would look up that brand name, make sure that it's a legitimate brand name. So that's just a kind of quick run through of the on the websites, how you can have a clue on whether they're legitimate or not, whether they're legal, some tools you can use to kind of sleuth that out, because it isn't always for sure. So that's our introduction to product orientation. Of course, there's a whole lot more to learn. As you're probably starting to get a sense, this is a very complex product, and it takes a little bit of practice and knowledge to find your way around choosing the right product. But hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of an introduction to it.